Alright, so we are working through the exercise and we're up to question 11, and question 11 is asking us to find the equation of the circle whose center lies on the line y equals 4 and which passes through the points 2, 0 and 6, 0. So the first thing we're going to do when we're doing this is give a little bit of a sketch of what we're looking at. So I have my circle whose center passes through the line y equals 4, which you see here, and I also know that it passes through 2 points, 2, 0 and 6, 0. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, just do a bit of a sketch, and then I'm going to put my equation for a circle down, which I know to be x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Now we know that let me come here in orange, my h and my k is going to be where my center lies. And we can immediately see by looking at my sketch and just by reading the question, we're told that my center lies on the line y equals 4. So we know that my k value right here is going to be 4. So I can rub out my k here and in its place put a 4. And so too I can come to my k spot here and rub that out and put a 4 there. Perfect. But what is my h value? Well, my h value isn't quite as obvious, and there are actually a couple ways we can go about this. The first thing that just struck me immediately is the fact that we're given two x-intercepts which have the same y value. They're both 0. So in other words, horizontally they're on the same plane. And because of this, what I could do is simply add together my two intercepts and then divide them by 2 to find their midpoint, and I know that midpoint is going to correspond to the center of my circle. So in other words, if I was to take 2 here and plus it with 6 and then divide that by 2, I'm going to get 8 over 2, which is going to be 4. And that would tell me that the center of my circle is going to be when x equals 4. So I'm just putting that in a dotted line here, trying my best to draw it neatly as possible. But I would say that this is where my center is, simply by doing that very quick thing. I'm saying it's going to be x equals 4. But I'm also sensitive to the fact that there might be some of us who don't recognize that. And if you're in a test environment, that might not be the first thing that jumps out at you. So what's another way we could approach this to find what our h value is? Let me just put this in here for a minute, because we kind of know just by doing that it is going to be 4. But how else could we come to that conclusion? Well, we could use simultaneous equations, and once again, using my x-intercepts, or using the two intercepts that they've given me. So the first equation I could make, 1, could be done by subbing in, so sub in, whoops, that didn't work, 2, 0. So now I come over here and alright, so I'm going to put in 2 here, minus h squared, then I'm going to plus 0 minus 4 squared equals r squared. So that's one equation, and then my second equation will be 2, and I'm going to sub in 6 and 0. So what I'll be left with is 2 minus h squared plus 0. Whoops, why did I put a 2 there? Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Sometimes I do that and I just kind of get into the zone and forget what I'm doing. Then that's going to be 4 there, squared equals r squared. So now I have 1 and 2, and I need to solve for h. So what I'm going to do now is say, let me just write them out again right next to each other. So I have 1, which is going to be, and I can actually simplify them out a bit, I'm going to get 2h squared plus, that's going to be 16 equals r squared, and then number 2 is going to be 6 minus h squared plus 16 equals r squared. Now what I'm going to do now is to solve it, I'm going to go 1 minus 2. And if I go 1 minus 2, these 16s are going to go away because they're just going to minus from one another. And these r squares are going to minus from one another. And then I'm going to end up with this minus this. So 1 minus 2 is going to look like this. 2 minus h squared minus 6 minus h squared. I no longer have the 16. I no longer have the r squares. I'm just going to be left with 0 here. Now hopefully this looks familiar to you. This, and let me do this in blue just over here, this right here is just difference of squares. It's a squared minus b squared is the same thing as a minus b, a plus b. So what I could do is change this form, because currently it's like this, and transform it into that. So now I could go, all right, I have, oops, let me make that a bit nicer. I have 2 minus h minus 6 plus h, close my brackets, then open my brackets again and get 2 minus h plus 6 minus h equals 0. Let me now simplify my brackets. So let me get my red again and cross things out. I have a minus h and a plus h. And then I have this 2 and minus 6, which is going to give me minus 4. Then I'm going to open my brackets. I'm going to get minus h, and minus h is going to give me minus 2h. And then 2 and 6 will give me plus 8. Let me do that. Perfect. Now I'm going to expand my brackets. So I'm going to be left with 8h plus, sorry, that's going to be a minus 32 equals 0. I'm now going to solve for h. So I'm going to be left with 8h equals 32. H equals 32 over 8. And we know that 32 over 8 is 4, because 8 fours are 32. And hopefully what you see here, and remember, it might seem like a while ago, we're solving for h. This is telling me that h equals 4, and that's exactly what I did here, simply by plussing these two intercepts together and finding the midpoint. But if you didn't see that, this is kind of just another way of finding what this h is. So now I could come here, rub that out, come to my color, let's get my orange, and put a 4 here. Perfect. So now I have my h value, I have my k value, I just need to find what my r value is, which is my radius. And again, there's a couple ways you could do this. With maths, the beautiful thing about maths is there's just a whole manner of ways you could go about things. My favorite way of going about this is doing something very ancient, and that is by finding a triangle. So I'm trying to find the radius. So could I find the radius of here? Whoa, let me try to do this straight. From here to here. That would be my radius. And I could actually find this because I can make a triangle. I could then go from here and here. And I know these values. I know this value is simply going to be from 0 to 4. So it's going to be 4. And this is 2 to 4. So it's going to be 2. So to find r, all I need to go is, well, 2 squared plus 4 squared is going to equal to r squared. So I scroll down. 2 squared is 4. 4 squared is 16. It's going to equal to r squared. So it's going to be 20 equals r squared. So my radius is going to be the square root of 20, like that. But let's remember that I'm going to square my radius. So I could actually just take this value right here, because this is r squared, and this is good because this is my very last thing. I could take this and put it there. So I could come over here, rub this out, and in its spot, let me do it in red, I'm going to get 20. So my final answer should be x minus 4 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 20. And if we go over here, just so we can be 100% sure we've done it correctly, here is my answer. And hey presto, is correct. Hope this helped.